Hi everyone, my name is Hamza and I am IT consultant working at AAA Norway. Today I have an exciting video for all Cisco Identity Service Engine fans. I will configure AAA on a network device to ensure that only authorized user can access the device console and VTY. And by implementing AAA in our infrastructure, we prevent unauthorized access and security breaches. If that sounds good, let's get started. This is my ISE node, and here is my domain controller that I have installed all the services needed to complete this lab. That include Active Directory, DHCP, and DNS. And this is the switch that I will configure the AAA on, and then I will test using a credential that I will add in the Active Directory. Let's move on to the next step, which in our case will be checking connectivity between ISE and the domain controller. And then I will add the domain as an external identity source inside ISE. To do that, first I need to maybe ping the domain controller and see if I have connectivity first. And let's ping the domain controller and see if I have connectivity. And sure, I have. So the next thing is to add it. Going to the administration, external identity source, go to Active Directory and click on add. And this is the join point name. I can just name it whatever I want so that I will use that in my policy if I want to reference my Active Directory join point. Active Directory domain, I need to write the domain. Let's make sure that I will get this right. So let's RDP to the domain controller. And here I am in my domain controller. I just can click on the server manager, go to local server, and here I can see this is my domain. So I can just write it here and click on submit. Would you like to join all ISE node to this Active Directory? I have only one node, so I'll just click on OK, yes. And here is the ID username and password. And I will use the administrator username and password. And then I will just use the administrator user. Click on OK. The node status is complete. Just to verify that, select and test a user test. And I have a success result. I can go to groups, click on add, select group from directory, and then retrieve all the groups. And here is all the groups in my Active Directory. I can click on the groups that I want to add. I want to add the administrators, Lab DC, and K5 and RV9. All right, let's click on OK and save. So the next step is to add the network device inside our ISE node. And we can do that by going to administration and network device. Click on add, give it a name. I will leave the description empty, and this is my IP address. And device type, it's a switch, and the location is DC. And here is my radius configuration. I can select it, and then I will write the pre-shared key, and let's go ahead and submit. Now let's configure the switch. I will configure a username and password and give it a privilege 15 just to ensure that the Cisco switch lost connectivity with the ISE node. I will still be able to access the console and the VTY using the local database. Give it a privilege 15. And now I will configure the AAA new model. And now I will specify the interface that the device will use to communicate with the radius server. IP radius source interface VLAN 204, and now I will add the radius server configuration, and I will configure the IP address IPv4 and the IP address of my ISE node, and it is 10.1.1.2. I can specify the port for the authentication and accounting. The authentication port I will use 1812, and the accounting I will use 1813, and specify the key. This is all what I need to add the server. And now is the time to tell the device to use radius for the authentication and the authorization. AAA, authentication, login, ADM, and it will use the group of radius, and then I will use the local, and that's to make sure that in case the device lost connectivity with the ISE node, it will use the local database to authenticate. And let's do the same with the authorization. ADM-Z group radius and local. And now let's move to the line console and the line VTY and tell them to use the ADM for authentication and ADM-Z for authorization. Console 0, login, authentication, and I will use ADM. Authorization for the exact, I will use ADM-Z. Yeah, it's just telling me the authorization without the global command AAA authorization console is useless. So I can do that. And now let's configure the line VTY from 0 to 15, login, authentication, ADM, authorization, exact, ADM-Z. And now we are ready to configure the security policy in our ISE node. But first I will go to my domain controller and create some users. Then I will configure the ISE node security policy. We go to Tools, Users and Computers, and here I will add a user. Now I created this username here, and I can make it a member of DCX. So go to Properties, Members, No Members, I'll add it here. And now let's go to my ISE node and then create the policy. We go to Policy, go to Policy Sets, and here I can see the default. I can create a new, insert a new row above, and then I will use default network access, and the condition is if the device type is a switch and the location is DC, then use the default network access profile. Device type, if it's a switch, and if the device location and the location is DC, then use the profile default network access. And let's save and go inside here and create a new one, and it will use the on-prem Active Directory and the condition network device, the device type, or if the device type is a switch and the location is DC, then use the on-prem Active Directory. Let's save this now. And let's test this one now and see the live logs. So a username, and I have authentication failed. The authorization failed is because I haven't configured the authorization policy yet. So if I go to the live logs here, go to operations, live logs, I can open this report here, and I can see authentication user against Active Directory on-prem, resolving identity, search match at joint point, single match account found in forest, and I have a password error. Okay, let's try again. I will get authentication failed, but I think this time I will pass the authentication and the authorization won't pass. Authentication passed, but the authorization didn't. What I can do is to create a authorization profile, click on add, give it a name, and give it access accept, and the network device profile is Cisco, and go to the attribute, choose Cisco, and the Cisco AV pair, and I will give it the privilege -LVL equal 15. Then click on submit. Now let's go back to the policy. Now let's create the authorization policy. Let's insert a new row and pick the authorization profile that we just created, on-prem COA, and just give it a name here. And the condition, I'll go to port if it's a radius, and the port type is equal to async, and this is the one for the console. And let's add a new one, and network device IP equal to 10.1.1.6, and let's use this. Save, and then try the authentication again. Okay, now it's working. So I go again to the operations, live logs, and this is my report, and I have authentication succeeded and the authorization as well. So I can see here the match rule, the auth for the authentication, and the authorization policy match is auth Z. And now let's shut down the interface VLAN 204, and then try to log in using the local database, just to make sure that we have access to the device if something happened with the ISE node. So if I go to the switch again, interface VLAN 204, and shut down, click on end and exit. Now I will not be able to access the ISE node. So the username Hamza Al won't authenticate, but the username and password that we configured on the local device will work. So the authentication failed. So it will start communicating with ISE first, and because I shut down the VLAN interface, VLAN interface, there will be no contacts with ISE, and then it will use the local database. So I am in right now using the Hamza, the username that I created in the local database. Let's bring interface VLAN 204 up again. No shot. And exit. So if I use the Hamza username that I configured on the local database, it will not work now, because now I have connectivity with ISE and the local database will not be used. So I will use Hamza al, and now I am authenticated and authorized. And that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, please let me know in the comment below, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel to see more. Thank you for watching.